Hello, LinkedIn. Pleasure to have you all tuning in today. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you're seeing this from. I'm delighted to have a great guest once again with us today. We have Francesca Gamboni. She is the SVP Global Supply Chain of Stellantis. Stellantis is a Dutch-domiciled multinational automotive manufacturing corporation formed in 2021, very recently, on the basis of a 50-50 cross-border merger between the Italian-American Fiat Chrysler Automobiles and the French PSA Group. Many of you know some of the brands that the company produces: Alfa Romeo, Chrysler, Dodge, Fiat, Jeep, Maserati, Opel, Peugeot, to say just some of them. And they have about 300,000 employees and manufacture in more than 30 countries, and they have present in 130 countries overall. So Francesca, great to have you. A bit of background also on yourself, because you have a fascinating career. More than 25 years, Francesca has spent across different areas of supply chain, across various industries, from automotive, which is now, to pharmaceuticals, oil and gas, pulp and paper, aerospace, as well as cosmetics. So she has also worked for other companies, including PricewaterhouseCoopers, Robert Bosch, Alcan, Renault Nissan, as well as L'Oreal. So Francesca, warm welcome. Great to have you, and thanks for joining us.
Hello to everybody. Thank you for this introduction. I don't need to introduce Stellantis, then you've done it perfectly. The brands you haven't mentioned, I think, will be upset with me after, but I hope everybody who's listening has knows the group Stellantis. So yes, I indeed have done a very diversified, varied, let's say, career path in different industry sectors, in different countries, in the majority of the continents, and in different roles, mainly in supply chain. But again, saying supply chain in the last 30 years, it means a lot of things. I mean, supply chain means something different in different industry sectors. In some industry sector, it means what everybody else doesn't want to do. In other industry sectors, it means something more serious. But still is a very vast perimeter, and it's a very interesting perimeter. And I think is the way to develop professionally, is really to jump into between industries, and that's I think is a key to be able to build a toolbox which allows really to be an innovator and to be in front of the run, and that's a front runner, and I think is a very important for developing talent, its own talent.
And I actually want to stay with that topic, because it's not often that I see professionals and actually by design, by day trade, we are in headhunting, we are an executive search firm, but it's not often that I see the multitude of almost mini careers that you've had in various industries and the ability to successfully transition, right? So maybe tell us a little bit how, any keys of success in terms of, you've switched 6 different industries, right? So.
Well, I've done it on purpose. It's not an accident. I've done it on purpose, and I really enjoyed it. But of course, you need to be open. You need to be curious, and that's something, and humble. Because the interesting thing is that you are always out of your comfort zone. So you need to like that, and you need to need to accept it. Because you're passing from being a top talent, a high potential, otherwise you wouldn't be recruited from the following company, to total incompetent. I mean, and this, it goes in a matter of days. And your ego, you're really testing the resistance of your ego while doing that. But of course, it doesn't last long, because in a matter of weeks or months, you do learn the technicalities, the specificities of the new industry sector. At the end of the day, I mean, I say it often, we're not saving lives, we're just making products, at the end of the delivering and selling products. So you learn quite quickly, still supply chain, you learn quite quickly the specificities of the industry sector. And there you add an additional, because you have a toolbox of best practices that you've seen elsewhere that you can apply, and there you become an innovator. So in addition to go back, being a talent and a high potential, and in a matter of months, but you add also the label of innovator and forward thinking, and and bringing new best practices from other industry sectors. This is very important because in reality, what I've seen going through all different industry sectors is that no industry sector has the monopoly of best practices. Although all of them believe they have, I haven't seen any company where I've been where there wasn't a bit of arrogance, thinking that they were very happy and open to teach me everything, very less to listen. But I mean, very clever people I've met everywhere. So then after a first step of, okay, we'll teach you all the best practices that we have, then there was the opening, okay, and now we'll listen the ones we don't have. And in fact, every industry sector develops. Supply chain is very vast, it's very transversal. It's from customer to customer, from customer demand to customer satisfaction, going through the whole company with different definitions. And every industry sector develops what is core and what is important for them, depending on what is their culture. For example, you have in the automotive is more of a manufacturing culture, and obviously everything that is upstream is more developed than everything that is downstream. Other in the FMCG is more marketing driven, so everything that is downstream is more developed, and demand planning, customer centricity, customer proximity is more developed. So every industry has really let's say a different practices, different part of the process who are more developed, and that's therefore the real people who are adding value in supply chain are the ones who can apply different practices that they've seen, who have a very rich toolbox that can help let's say progressing, because it's very important. It's going very fast, supply chain, so it's very important that we progress fast and that we have the tools and we have the ideas and we have the practices that allows us to do step changes where we go, and not we're not in a continuous improvement. Of course, we have a continuous improvement approach, but we are in a step change kind of world, because the function is a rather new function. But again, to be able to do this, we need to have very smart HR people and recruiters who are not looking to put in a position a person who has done already that job 10 times before, but they are willing to take risks on people. And that's important, and that's very important, that there is this development and this growth also in the culture and in the mindset of the HR who are working in the different companies. I haven't seen it often, but it's improving.
Well, you're living example, and you prompted me with my next question, right? Because you said you have made these moves consciously.
Yeah.
For those listening, how can you make, so you I mean, again, fascinating. You've transitioned almost 6 different industries, right? With completely different, and to the point that you just made. I mean, I'm sitting as a headhunter. 90% of the companies look more of the same. They don't look for the, they don't really look. I mean, they may say they're looking for innovators, but in reality, they're not. They are playing it safe, and they're looking apple to apple. So in your case, right, tell us a little bit, any secrets, any tips? How did you do it?
But I was lucky. In fact, I'm sorry to say luck. Normally, something is difficult to apply, but to learn. But I was lucky. I was, let's say, contacted by different industry sectors, and I jumped on it, let's say, consciously, because I wanted. I was also contacted. I've always been contacted very often, I must say. It must be because maybe I've done something good, or maybe I'm visible, or maybe I'm just lucky. Whatever the three you can apply, but I've always been contacted, so I've been given opportunities, and I've jumped on the one who could complete my toolbox. Of course, when you're interviewed, also when you go, you need to explain what you can bring. So you need to a little bit understand, be more open in understanding. Let's say this different zone, you need to go already out from your comfort zone, and not just describe and understand different cultures, different mindset, in order to understand, to explain what is the value that you can bring. But you need to explain it in the language of this other industry, and not in your own language, not with your own jargons, not with your own culture and mindset, but you need to a bit project in the mind of someone else, and that's in a different culture and a different mindset. And that's maybe sometimes the obstacle. I see it on automotive people. Automotive people are, which I know very well, very, very clever, but I mean, everybody who works in supply chain, I think you don't resist if you're, at least you're resilient. So but they are very often in the automotive is, and I had the occasion to say it also in another occasion, automotive is a very closed industry sector, or at least not open enough, like other industry sectors. So people in automotive tend to go to other automotive companies, which means they tend to be kind of formatted in a way and have a language and a jargon that they don't even realize. So when they speak, they have a problem in explaining what is the value added that they can bring. And often they scare because HR or recruiters, they think this person will never be able to adapt in another industry. It's just hopeless. And it's not true. It's just that they have to learn to speak a different language and to open in this sense. Again, it's not yet very much developed, the fact of going in other industry sector. Also because it needs to be understood also that automotive, for example, and I don't want to focus on automotive, but it's just the latest, is also an industry where most of the people, 99% of the people who join are passionate of the product. So there are people who were playing cars when they were little, and they continue playing with cars, and they continue talking about cars. And even when it is not related, you're in meetings, and then it just comes in a topic. And somebody mentions something, and then they go on, and then you have to stop because it's just conversation, and it's not getting to the point because they're really passionate, which means it's difficult to get out and to, let's say, adapt to something else. But I think it's very helpful and healthy for all people coming from all different industries. So again, being capable of translating the value that you can bring in a different language, which is not yours, with different priorities, with a different mindset.
And I'll, for my own sake, I have a bit of a subjective interest here, but I will highlight what you also said. Being visible helps, so I mean, these opportunities, you can say that is lucky, but I would also suspect that those people, headhunters or not, that came to you to say, hey, Francesca, are you interested in this job, did that because they knew about you, they found out about you, they saw you speak maybe at the conference, and that's how these things happen, right? So luck is the label under correct knowledge as well, right? So it's I just want to reinforce, because a lot of people kind of have this limiting belief that, if I do a great job, then, opportunities will come. They may or they may not, right? So it's also a matter of making sure that you put yourself out there, that people know about you.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I've been told many times to headhunters. I haven't done it consciously. I've done it because maybe when I'm in line, or I appreciate the person who asked me to do either a speech or a conference or a podcast or whatever. But I haven't done it searching. But I've been told that being visible is also something that you should look for. Also, I've been often contacted because other people I've been working with have been gone in other companies and have made let's say given the name or have mentioned. So it's very important. We tend to believe that it's important as long as our boss appreciates us. But the ecosystem with which we work, which is very, very important, is very important not only professionally for the results, for our own results, and maybe we'll have the occasion to talk more about that, but also personally in terms of visibility, the visibility we have and the appreciation we have. So not only let's say for solving problems or being in contact with our ecosystems, and that is never been so true than now, and we'll see it in a number of crises, not last the crisis, semiconductor crisis, like the relation with the ecosystem is at the center of the preoccupation and the concerns and the let's say targets of supply chain profession, but also personally, individually, for its own career, is definitely an important point. Definitely. Again, there are different languages. I've found, for example, as an example, spending money in certain in certain, let's say, languages or in certain industries is a cost. In other industries, is an investment. So it's seen bad or good. It's seen very red or yellow green, depending on how the let's say the blockages, the culture and the blockages that we have, let's say, drive our way of speaking or our way of understanding what we hear. So we need to be careful when we talk.
But then I'm going to link it and double click and highlight this, because again, I've seen this over and over, and I cannot agree more with your point. You gotta use the language that the people that you're talking to understands, and that's that can be a major trouble, especially in supply chain, where people tend to be quite practical. And one problem is you don't change your speech when you're speaking across industries, right? So you go to a different industry, and you might need to refer to it as a cost saving versus as an investment, because that's the language that the industry understands. There's no right or wrong. You just label it the way people understand it and process it. But it's very accurate, and it happens a lot. And the reason why there's a lot of war inside companies between sales and supply chain, right? Between manufacturing and I mean, they just speak different languages, and the inability to translate that results into problems, right? So cannot stress enough what you just.
Yeah, absolutely, and the role of and supply chain. I mean, and I don't know, we'll have the opportunity to talk, about it. But I mean, being a supply chain professional requires very specific skills and personal skills, soft skills, more than let's say technical skills. Of course, also technical skills, but like other professions, but very specific. And of course, we talk about leadership, talking about persuasion, business mindset, result-oriented, but the capability also of understanding cross-function and cross-culture also, different industry sector. And the second one becomes even more important today professionally, because we see, for example, and I again, I'm sorry, I keep bringing the example of the semiconductor crisis, but you might understand that is at the center of 90% of my work of the last months, at least maybe I mean, or at least of my nights without sleep, is a nightmare, at least for the automotive industry sector, or I guess other industry sector. But of course, that also came to the surface, that we had within our supply base. We were crossing industries. We were going and supplying, at a certain tier where you go. I mean, you buy your parts, and then eventually you go through tiers, and you get to a tier where you are cross industries. And if you don't understand the mechanism, if you're not open to understand the mechanism of other industries like electronics, like phones, or like whatever, and the buying mechanism and their trends and their markets and their behavior, then you're lost. Then you remain with your small industry rules, even if it's a big industry, still one industry, rules and way of behaving that are not suited for different areas or angles or tiers of supply. So again, it's very important also professionally to be able to walk, let's say, in a comfortable way in different industries, walk and talk in a comfortable way, exactly like it is in different functions. Being capable of speaking the language of different functions within a company. Again, supply chain is the role of us. That's my view. Is like an orchestra director. It's an orchestra director within a company, which means it needs to be able to know. Doesn't mean it needs to be able to play, but to know and to understand all the different instruments. And the same is within the ecosystem. So it needs to understand the different industry sectors with the different logics and the different ways of working. Otherwise, it becomes a cacophonic music, and which destroys value ultimately for your own company.
And on the topic of semiconductors, since that's the, I mean, for most if not all automotive manufacturers, there's the what's keeping all of your colleagues as well at night. I mean, I don't want to go into the what caused it and all of that. Okay, that there's been enough said and done and written. But to that point that you just made with understanding cross industries and understanding that maybe the same chip is made, is used by a multitude of other, phone manufacturers or laptops, or any sort of patterns or ways in which you were able at Stellantis to navigate this better? Any wins, I guess, or successes that you can share? Maybe some of the people can relate and understand in this specific chip crisis.
Of course, we are still in the middle of the chip crisis, so I will not share our secret. So
okay,
no, but apart from that, I think, I mean, I don't know the secret weapons of my competitors either, but I do believe that they're all the same. I mean, I think that we manage the crisis in the same way. I think that the different measures that we apply are the same. I must say that automotive is quite advanced in crisis management, possibly because we're always in crisis. Because the flows are very tense. Because they're very stretched, the flows, because the cost, there is a lot of, because it's manufacturing driven, because there is a lot of cost, let's say, cost consciousness in years, because there is a lot of, because the global supply chain is very complex, and more complex, because the cars are very complex to build, because we are going on different technologies, because they're more and more complex, connected, so due to customer demand. Hence it is let's say an industry which is I would say often in crisis. So I must say the crisis, for whatever reason, for different reasons. I mean, supply crisis, transport crisis. I mean, there are a number of crises, but logistic crisis, but often it's the case. Hence, it does have quite a developed crisis management, let's say, cell or processes. So that in that point, what I think is, I mean, never let, as Winston Churchill was saying, never let a good crisis go waste. So in fact, there are a lot of learnings and lessons that I think we've all learned. And if I can resume to the first one, as I mentioned before, is the relation with the ecosystem, with our ecosystem, which I think that we, supply chain at least, are not developing well enough. The relation means really being able to communicate in real time information and data along the whole chain. The whole chain, meaning at all the whole levels. The communication, the information needs to go in both ways, obviously. The visibility needs to go in both ways in order to anticipate, in order to be able to prepare, in order to be able to have, again, the time to prepare and to react to different events which occur more and more often for a number of reasons, also because we have built a very complex supply chain, very complex. The global supply chain is very complex in the world of COVID and let's say and volatile demand is very and customized products and internet is very complex to handle and to manage. Hence, we need to have a perfect visibility, we have to have no distortion, a perfect visibility, a perfect information transfer, data transfer with all our ecosystems. And when I talk about ecosystems, I talk about suppliers and customers and all the ecosystem. But of course, we also need to have a collaborative way of working with all the ecosystem and dealing and tackling the issues, let's say, together, more in a collaborative way with the whole chain. And this is something that I think we have learned with this crisis, and I think is something that will drive our future way of working, our future settings with all the ecosystems, starting with obviously connecting, let's say, from a data perspective, but also in approaching the problems in a different way, in a collaborative way, and not in an isolated way, in a silos way, which long has been spoken about silos in terms of functional silos within a company. I think we'll start talking about silos in terms of industries, and which needs to collaborate in a more open way. And I think this would be the learning that I had definitely that that I have, and me and my team, and that we have learned.
And you mentioned the downstream, upstream, and automotive versus FMCG. There might be a different focus, right? And I know that we discussed a little bit on the case study of SNOP, and this kind of planning processes are maybe more well developed in fast-moving consumer goods, or tend to be more well developed. I don't know, for heavier industries tend to be a little bit less. I know that you implemented, and it's a very specific case study, right? So let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, I must say that what I've noticed is, I mean, when we introduced it in our company, in fact, it depends on the horizon. So the automotive is very good managing the long-term horizon. So long-term horizon, talking about the 18 months onwards. And very good, as I said before, the short-term horizon. So the 0-6 months. So these are two horizons which historically have been very well developed. The first one is an horizon which basically, I would say, create values, because basically you create value on the long term. At least, I mean, this is within this industry sector. Other industry sectors have different horizons and different lead times and different logics. Let's say in this logic. So it's an horizon that creates value. And then you have the short-term value. The short-term value, the short-term horizon, sorry, is an horizon which, in fact, it doesn't create value. It doesn't even optimize value, because it's an horizon where you can't really change much. It's an horizon which lives with the decisions already taken and somehow tries to, let's say, limit the destruction, I would say, because it's a very short-term horizon. And then you have an horizon from 6 months to 18 months, or for 2 years, up to 2 years, which is an horizon which was, at least in my company, wasn't. It was obviously dealt with, but not much. There wasn't really an owner of this taking the lead on this horizon, and it is obvious that the owner of this horizon is the supply chain. So, but the supply chain hadn't taken, let's say, this horizon, the management of this horizon, in a very, let's say, decisive way. So what we did is to say, okay, this is what we will implement. So we will take this horizon, the horizon 6 months, 18 months, and we'll make sure that we set up a decision-making process which is the best. The best to manage this horizon. This is an horizon where you optimize the value, basically. So you have a number of trade-offs, you have a number of elements, and by let's say, by trade-off, by playing on the ratio of these different elements, you manage to optimize the value equation, which is always a trade-off. It's never, it's not like on the longer horizon. It's always a trade-off. So what we said, we have implemented this process, this SNOP process. This is a process which aims. So the aim of this process is to give us the chances to take the best decisions. And the best decisions, and then I'll go in detail on the SNOP. The best decisions are the decision, in my view, which have 3 elements. The first one is that they are data-driven, one unique set of data, and the most accurate possible data, and the decisions are data-driven. The second element to make sure that we make a best decision is that the decision is taken at the right time, and the right time is not early as possible. It's the right time. It's not too early and not too late. It's the right time. And the third element, which is the key element on our process, is that it leverages collective intelligence, meaning cross-functional intelligence. Because of course we had decisions were taken in our company, but they were not. We were not giving ourselves the chances to take them in the best way by taking them at the right time, by taking them on data-driven, on one unique set of data and accurate data, and also by leveraging collective intelligence. They were taken in different silos based on the data the silos had, based on the moment the head of the silos thought it was the right moment for taking the decision, or based on the moment where the decision was put under the nose of an executive. And that basically was the way decisions were taken. Obviously I'm exaggerating, but this is a bit. So the fact of having a process, let's say a very formal process, which puts around the table all the executives once a month, and all the executives are around the table, and decisions are taken at their level all together in a let's say in a consensual way all together within this standardized process, monthly process, it's very powerful. And obviously, there is not only this, let's say, meeting once a month on a rolling, with a rolling horizon of 18 months, 18 2 years, months data, but also there is all decisions are also taken at all the different levels below in the previous, let's say, 29 days of the month. So we have to split it in two. We have basically the first 15 days. They are mainly dedicated to the demand, and the second 15 days they are mainly dedicated to the reply to this demand. So the first 15, and then there is a loop, obviously, on what is the demand and what can we do on the demand side, and what we should do and what we can do on the demand side, what we can do and what we should do and what we can do on the on the supply part, and then there are iterations between the two in order to get on the table of the executives. Only the decisions that are at their level, obviously, and below the decisions which are need to be taken at the level below. But in order to take all the decisions, they need to be taken in order to optimize the value equation. So that's basically, in a nutshell, what is all about our S&OP process. We have, in order to get because it's very important to get the buy-in of the executives to let's say, to participate and to contribute to this process. And this buy-in needs to continuously be fed. They need to see a value in it. So we measure the value we create with our process. We measure the value and we submit, and we have targets of the value that we create, and we submit these measurements regularly in order to make sure that it's not just, it doesn't become just another meeting where we take decisions that are already taken or that are not the best decisions that we could take, or at least we don't give us the chances. We can make mistakes, but we really want to give ourselves the chance to take the best decisions.
And you spoke also about the importance of visibility, and I know that another case study that you've championed is the container track and trace. Yeah. And maybe tell us a little bit about that as well.
That was a very fun project. We've done in Stellantis a lot of any number of initiatives, interesting initiatives. The track and trace was a very fun project. In fact, the trigger was different than what with all the value that we found after. The trigger at the beginning was linked, as you know, I mean, I don't know, people know in the automotive industry, we tend to have returnable packaging for all our supplies, for cost, quality, and sustainability. Luckily, sustainability goes in the same direction of cost, so often but mainly these are the three triggers in order. I would say first, quality definitely is number one. Quality, then cost and sustainability will go in second. So we have let's say containers which are designed in order to protect our parts, and also in order to be logistics. I mean, to be let's say well filled in also designed for logistics, designed for quality, designed for logistics. So we have our containers, and these auto containers are quite expensive because we have millions of them. They're quite expensive, and because we have a very complex logistics, as said, the supply chain, we need quite a number of, we need a coverage of several days, depending on how far the suppliers are. So we need quite a big dotation, a big amount of containers, and these containers are a bit capital expensive, and of course you can use them again for another project, but again it's very expensive to use, to buy, and so on. And we were quite annoyed of the fact that many of them went lost. So they were lost. So all of a sudden they were lost in the supply chain, in the complex supply chain, and we had to rebuy other containers. And particularly our executive and our CEO was quite pissed off about losing our containers we couldn't explain where. And it's something that all I mean, all the automotives have the same issue, right? And I can't say who loses more or less. I'm sure we lose less now after what we have put in place. But again, So we have decided to put, let's say, a sensor or some kind of track and trace our containers with something that needed to be not too expensive. So not something, a technology where, for example, like RFID, you had to put portals or other things like this, because this was not viable. Something that, again, not expensive. But mainly the issue was something that could last 5 or 7 years. The battery could last 5 or 7 years, which is the lifetime a bit of the containers, at least 5 or 7 years. And the GPS, the new GPS 4G, let's say, networks, they consume too much battery, so they weren't viable. So we found an intelligent sensor. We developed an intelligent sensor using a, let's say, IoT kind of, let's say, a network at low energy, which would allow us to have these devices mounted on our containers and transmitting the information with a precision within a few kilometers, but I mean with quite a good precision. And transmit the information to us, and let's say the battery, with a battery that would last 5 or 7 years. So we started collecting the data and started to processing the data, analyzing the data with some kind of, let's say, tools that would allow us to, let's say, analyze intelligent data visualization and analysis. And we started understanding a number of other opportunities, improvement opportunities, because we started seeing where our containers were ending up. So we started understanding what our suppliers were doing with our stuff. We started understanding what our logistic providers were doing with our stuff, and this gave us a lot of improvement opportunities, which started the conversation with our suppliers, with first understanding why are you doing what are you doing, and then okay, and now maybe let's do it differently. We have also found out a lot of thefts.
I was sure that would come up. Yeah.
That came out. I mean, we also found our containers on eBay. Okay, we found the thefts, which obviously have been corrected. So I mean, all in all, we were starting. I mean, the objective, the first driver, the trigger was to find thefts, but we found far more opportunities, improvement opportunities that allow us really to go one step further. So by tracking, by just having the information and following and analyzing the lifetime and the network and the path that our containers were doing all around the world, and that was quite interesting. So that was a very fun and nice project that we have developed. We have been asked by many entities, also external entities, especially during COVID. I mean, asking us so information and benchmarks about this device, because it's quite interesting. Because
did you say, Francesca, that you developed it yourself? So you ended up developing it yourself
together with partners. Yes.
Co-development. Okay. Yeah, I mean, ultimately you could potentially sell that to, maybe you don't want to sell it necessarily to your competitors, but there's other industries that could use that.
Sure. But it's that to do together with partners. So we have co-developed.
And do you have any data, like how much savings did you? I mean, do you have any sense of what the bottom line, or I mean, when 10%, 20% less containers lost, or anything like that?
We had overall. I don't have the latest figures, but we are around 50% less lost.
50%. Oh wow. Okay. Awesome. Well, I need to. So we're having a big event in November on global supply chain. I might ask you to do a case study and present this, because I think it could be interesting.
But it could be because we were losing a lot.
Well, yeah. I mean, but that's what happens, right? If people, I mean, coming back to theft, right? Or as human beings in general, if we have the opportunity to find shortcuts and jack the system, we most likely, some of us will.
Yeah.
So it's
but also is improving. I mean, we're continuing. It's not. I mean, we keep finding, let's say, all again, the containers are lost for good and bad reasons. I mean, they also break. I mean, they also break and they collapse, or maybe they break and they are not repaired, or maybe they are used, they are stolen, or maybe they are used for things for which they shouldn't be used, like trash bins. I don't know how they say, okay, or for internal flows or whatever. I mean, there is a number of reasons for which there are good reasons and bad reasons, and the fact of really going deeper in understanding and following and reading the data, because again, we know that data makes sense if we are capable of reading the data. It definitely added a lot of value.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you don't know what you don't know, so there's one layer. I was talking at some point with a good friend from Corning. They make glass, specialty glass, and a lot of different things. And by being able to achieve different visibility into their logistics, for example, she was sharing that they shifted to train. I mean, up till that point, they did not consider train as an option because they thought that the glass might shatter. But because they were able to put some sensors, I mean, you don't start with 20 trains, you start with one shipment and you see what happens, right? And they were able to measure, and they realized that it worked and the glass wouldn't shatter. And basically then that took a lot of load from what they were doing via air freight or more expensive modes, again, because they had that visibility into another way of doing things. So visibility matters, traceability matters. I guess I want to ask you also on drawing to a close a little bit, but on this topic of skills, right? If you were to think from a supply chain of the future perspective, or even of the present, what would you say are the most important skills that supply chain executives need to have?
Well, we mentioned already a couple. I mean, which leadership, leadership, business mindset. So these are all openness and capability. But again, I think there are a number of others which are new. They came to the attention now, which we mentioned also before. So one is obviously you need to be comfortable with data. So you need to be not only data driven, but also be comfortable. I'm not saying you need to be an IT geek, but you definitely need to be comfortable with data. You need to be comfortable with the technologies also, which are around the new technology, digitalization technologies. You need to be comfortable with. The digitalization is one key element of supply chain. And it's going very fast, it's going very quick. Doesn't mean that you need to fall in love for a technology and then see where you can apply it, because this is the pitfall many do. They fall in love with what a technology can do, and then they try to find a way to apply it, which doesn't bring, in fact, value to the business. We need to be focused on what are the business priorities, and then find the technologies that can answer to these business priorities and can enhance the value of the company. So that's an important point. But again, you need to be comfortable with the new technologies. You need to be curious. You need to be open. And again, in terms of communication, we spoke about it at the beginning. Supply chain is all about, let's say, directing the orchestra, whether it's internal or external. Is all about communication, connection with the ecosystem, with all the different entities. And in order to connect, you need to be open-minded, curious. You need to be capable. You need to be leadership. The leadership is a different kind of leadership. It's not a vertical. It's an horizontal kind of leadership that you need to have. You need to understand different areas. You need to cope with the fact that you will always have somebody in front of you who's more competent on the topic you're talking about than yourself. You need to be comfortable out of the comfort zone, being able to speak different languages. As we spoke, but obviously not country languages, as we said, industry languages, as we said, or functional languages. Need to be able to grasp what is the different areas, to be able to see what the equation should look like, the value equation, with a bit of this and a bit of that, and what is best for the company in terms of this optimization. So again, what I think is that what we said before, cross-functional and cross-industry mindset is very important, with again a business mindset, and result orientation, a business mindset, and a capability of federating, federating everybody to the common goal, which is the best for the company. So basically, if I resume it, is the capability of understanding the different elements, the capability of understanding how to combine them in the best way, in the way that optimizes the value for the company, and then persuading and communicating and persuading with everybody to be able and leading everybody in the same, aligning in the same direction, like an orchestra director. I mean, said like this, it looks simple, but it's not. But it requires.
Even said like this, not sure it sounds simple, but yeah, it's back to you made the point, right? It's more of a soft skills than a hard skill. I mean, I'm not sure they teach you this in school, right? Maybe the better schools, they have a lot of extra curriculum, team time activities. That there you might pick up some of these things, but not in the textbook itself.
They're soft skills, but you can develop them. You can feed them, and again. Exiting, at least during the beginning of the career, exiting from the comfort zone, keep challenging yourself, keep changing the referral systems, and keep challenging yourself is the way to develop these skills. If remaining in the comfort zone, in the zone of expertise, it will not help develop these soft skills, because but it would be very good for the ego. It's very good remaining.
Yeah, well, I mean, horses for courses, right? Different people, but yeah, to your point, you're a great example of what happens when you do that repeatedly. Final quick fire. It just came to me in the spur of the moment. But anyways, quick fire round with you, Francesca. So I'll have 5 questions you can answer in 30 seconds or less, right? So very, very quick answers wanted from you. Favorite book? What's your favorite book?
Favorite book? It's a long time. I haven't had the time to. Well, I like the last one, but it's a time ago. Good to Great. I liked Jim Collins.
Yeah, great one. Quote, favorite quote. Any favorite quotes for you?
I can hear it. Favorite quote is what I just quoted before. I think that's why.
The crisis.
Yes, good crisis doesn't go for waste. Yeah.
Awesome. How about a limiting belief that held you back? What was that limiting belief that held you back? And when you overcome it, you're like, okay, cool.
I'm not sure I understand the question.
So if at some point of your career you had a limiting belief, I don't know, I'm too young to do something, or I don't have enough knowledge, or I'm not experienced enough. We all have different ways in which we kind of limiting belief. Yeah, ultimately, right? Did you have one of those?
No. Maybe. Yeah. No, not a limiting belief. No, as you describe it. I had some limits more linked to my personal life, but not on the capability.
Awesome. Well, there you go. And that's very good.
It comes from education, I think.
Yeah, a lot of it comes from that. What's your favorite role model? Do you have one?
Favorite role model? I have many. But I mean, they're all in my close, let's say, environment. They're all. I mean, the people I've met in work. I mean, some bosses I had, some people worked for me. I have a number of role models. I think you can learn from everybody. So everybody is a role model. For one, and I mean, and I think I can learn from everybody. I met, or for many people I've met, provided you look with curiosity the people you meet, and not with competition.
Super. Final one, hard one. I have to preempt you. Hard one, given that you work for Stellantis, who has 20 brands. What car brand do you drive?
No, I won't answer this. No, I will try all of them because I have a lucky experience that you can change car. You can change every. I mean, the people who work in the automotive have the same. You can change often car, the company car, and so that's the fantastic thing because you get to try them all. You get to try them all. So
Well,
all of them are good.
I knew I would put you on the spot, so I'll let you get away with that. I know that is not, you can't possibly say one on the. I mean, I would have said Maserati, but I don't know how much you have access to that. But yeah, on that note, great having you, Francesca. It's been a delightful sharing session. Thanks for the time today, and for all the great pearls and great case studies shared. And yeah, many thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.